So yesterday's handout, the one that we have with the questions for too much pressure, we're going to take a look at a few of those for today. Because yesterday we were kind of going over, definition and whatnot. Again, we're not filling out the whole sheet. You're not bringing it for Tuesday as a homework assignment. But if you do have it, you want to take that out. If you don't, there's still some more over here. For Tuesday, there's nothing you need. Yeah.
It's a bag.
So you can go get me one.
For Tuesday, you don't have any homework assignments that you need to worry about or anything along those lines. We're going to talk about maybe like 10-15 minutes with the sheet, and then that's going to lead into the next set of notes that we're going to do, which is Toulmin model. We're not going to finish them today. We'll finish those things probably up on Tuesday. Next Friday, you have a quiz, which is going to be based on the notes that we're taking, but it's only based on the notes. So there's not a reading assignment of too much pressure or the lot or anything like that going with it. And next week, I'll show you the format, so you're not going to be surprised if anything that's going to be happening with it.
Are we going to keep those Spartan dates?
We're done for now in the sense of everyone, participated, so you got your points. The next set of debates that we're going to do, they're not going to be spar debates, but there's still going to be an element of chance so far as to what your topic is going to be. But I wanted to mention this today because probably looking in the neighborhood of 2.5 weeks before that happens. So again, nothing that you need to get worried about at this point. But for those spar debate topics, rather than you getting, Humpty Dumpty was pushed, escalators are meant to be walked on, buttons are superior to buttons, or zippers are superior to buttons, we're going to come up with topics ourselves within here. Now, it's not going to be bottled water is better than tap water and those things, but we're going to look at current event issues. What are things that you want to discuss? And we can go in a whole bunch of different directions, and we'll do some brainstorming in here. So if you're one of the people who the idea of taking class was, I want to argue and yell about current events, this will kind of be that way. So it might, I'm not trying to suggest that it has to go in this direction, but it might be going into politics too, whether it be with Trump and Clinton. I mentioned about Kaepernick and standing for the national anthem or not standing, or the socks that he's now wearing in pregame ceremonies. Those could all be possible topics that we take a look at, could go in other directions. So we're not going to do skateboarding is better than biking, but we'll certainly take what are issues today, be it entertainment, pop culture, education, politics, whatever the case may be. So you don't have an assignment to come up with 5 topics and be ready, but you can kind of start having the wheels turning a little bit about those things. But that'll be in I would call it like a modified SPAR format that as we get closer, we'll start going over all that stuff. All right. So next week, we'll finish up with the Toulmin model notes. So by no means do you need to be worried about any kind of quiz at this point for next week, because you're not going to be ready for it until at least until Tuesday of next week. 3-day weekend. On Monday, think about Sarah and biking possibly 40 miles. So,
That's cool.
good times. Would you bike 40 miles? I don't see Andrew biking. I see you complaining after like 3 miles.
But I wouldn't do myself enough to
I'm picturing Sean like a little bike.
When it's way too small.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know why I'm picturing that, but that's the thought going through my head right now. So, okay. Trying to get that image out of my head. There we go. Oh. I guess the background piano music we should probably turn off. Although we could kind of have it, going on. All right, so we were going over the whole academic cheating yesterday. One thing that I don't think came up I know it did not come up second period yesterday. I don't think you folks mentioned it. And not that you don't think of it as cheating, but no one said that I recall like looking on someone else's desk, or like Scantron or anything like that, where you crack the neck and look to see. I don't know if it's because it's blatant, it's assumed that, yeah, obviously that would be cheating. We think more about whether or not homework for credit for points would be, but of, the 40 people that we're talking about, no one actually said, oh, okay, yeah, that one, I'm gonna mark down. One thing that did come up this morning would be if Sarah has the test first period and Kaylee has the test third period, you ask Sarah what was on the test. Is that considered cheating, or is that, this is when you said using your resources, what do you think?
That's clean.
Okay.
That's why you have different forms.
That's clean in my teachers and
That's what we did last year in physics.
Haley, what were you gonna say?
Well, I guess you could call it cheating, but the thing is, I don't see any way that you would prevent that. I mean, unless you get a different test, which you physically can't, but if you all had the same test, even if you said, like, on the announcements that morning, don't ask for these test questions, that's cheating, like,
Then I would give
Yeah, that's big.
Maybe I'll start running those announcements every morning. Mr. Kane, please request that you do not copy each other's homework. Anyone who does so will be punished.
your stuff, you can't copy it, you give us different stuff. Like first period had like different questions.
Oh, the TWAs and all that kind of.
Grading type quizzes were always different.
Yeah, most of the time.
So that we could copy each
See, that's not fun.
Second period, I brought it up, and the response was, "Well, do you think it's cheating?" Like they totally turned the table, and I said, "Sure." This is kind of like similar to using your resources. I said, "Yeah, I'd still call it academic like dishonesty or lack of integrity in the sense." And you're right. There's no way that you can stop it. And that if you are getting an unfair advantage that you didn't gain through studying, then I guess you have to call it academic dishonesty. So therefore, it would be cheating. You said, clear, open, and no problem. I forget the exact line, but first and second period said, well, teachers always say to do the best of your ability. So that's part of my ability to ask, is the quadratic equation or mean value theorem going to show up on that test? And so they were kind of looking for that whole loophole thing with it. And generally with the way those things work, it tends to be, reciprocated where maybe Sarah has that class first, but then you have some other class first, where you're able to give information. So it hints, sorry. So I'm not cheating because, they're helping me, and then I'll be able to kind of help them. I'm not telling them what the exact test is or the exact questions, but sure, you need to make sure you look over your precedents, for the 1880s to know, BPs and all that kind of stuff. Someone was asking, well, what if you ask them if the test is hard? Like, well, that doesn't matter to me because that's all I hold. Or you might think it's an easy test because you studied. Alec might think it's a hard test because he did not study. So that's pretty hard to quantify. But I would say asking if such and such was on it or what was the test like. But for me, as the educator, that would probably fall under cheating. But I would agree that I didn't stop it. Besides giving out different tests and quizzes and all those things.
I don't think it's cheating. You're not telling them the answer. Like there are a lot of problems that you have to work out your solution. So like.
Yeah, no, it's, and I mean, for any kind of concept, there's certainly going to be varying degrees. And it would kind of go to Natalie's point where, if you're a parent, you're helping a child, that probably will get looked at as using resources, where if you are a student, some might say it's cheating or not cheating. You're certainly not doing the work for them. I think we would agree that if Whitten came in and took a multiple choice Scantron and wrote, Alex Glatz on the answer sheet, that we would look at that as being cheating. He's not telling you the answers, but he's basically giving you the points for the work that he's done. That would not be anywhere near the same degree as to, make sure you look over chapter 5, but you still do have to complete the work. Alec, Joe?
I was going to say, well, I mean, you'd think that maybe telling the answers to someone before a test might not be cheating, but it's basically the same thing as taking the test, looking at it, and then going into, probably once you hear what's on the test, you're going to look up how to do that, and then you're going to go into the test, and you wouldn't have known if
Sure.
you didn't ask.
I mean, and you could, and again, depending, these are always variables, you can make the argument, well, if I ask Sarah after first period, I take the test second period, I have a better idea what's gonna be on it, I don't have the ability to really think about it. Now, you're absent on test day, Caitlin tells you what's on the test, you get a text picture of the test, now it's really getting much more incriminating in that respect. Now, I wanna make it perfectly clear, I have no problems with you making up responses and giving false information about what's on the test to the other classes. I think that's just good fun. It's like in your English book, leave false sticky notes like, hey, this is important passage, and trick Haley into putting down the wrong thing. When it's all said and done, for this part, in your own words, summarize Wenke's claim or overall argument, and there certainly could be multiple things. What would you say would be like main point argument that she's trying to drive home through the article? Because the big thing that we were certainly focusing on yesterday, what is cheating, what's not cheating, that's not the main point she's trying to get across. What would be like a main element of her argument? And there certainly could be multiple ones too, but what do you think some of those things would be? Main claim, point she's trying to advance.
Somebody's advocating cheating.
Advocating might be
Not advocating, but allowing it to happen.
I think that would work, yeah. I'm not a big fan of the term society because that can go in so many directions. Certainly, she would argue that students aren't stopping it, but I think you could say other groups, like who else?
She said teachers.
Teachers, schools in general. So, students, teachers, and schools allow cheating. So maybe that schools don't endorse or advocate. Ryan, we would like you to cheat, but her argument would be that they may not be going to their fullest extent to police it, so to speak. Okay, yeah, I think that's absolutely accurate.
That schools don't teach morals entirely.
Just switch colors. Do you think schools should teach morals? That's a whole nother ballgame, but you're going, yeah. Paige, you kind of wrinkled your nose a little bit at that one.
I mean, they could, but I don't know. You kind of get that from your parents or someone.
The amount of influence might not necessarily be enough.
Yeah, once you get to high school or even like late elementary school, your morals are basically set in your head. It's very difficult for people to change that.
I'd probably agree with that.
It needs to be set. Your values need to be set early on.
The youngest had her first day of kindergarten yesterday. Did you like your teacher? Yes, she's not strict at all. So I'm a little worried about the morals that might go on. No. But yeah, you're right. Probably at an early age, that would have to get worked on or too late. What else? I think both of those would be correct. Natalie?
That the reason cheating is becoming more popular is because of more of an emphasis on grades compared to knowledge.
Okay, so grades are greater than knowledge. That's a conundrum. I don't know how you solve that one. I mean, is there anyone in here where you would look at acquisition of knowledge more important than the grade? Maybe 3, maybe 4. Alex, yeah, I don't know. Anyone dead set, and Haley, you have a comment? I'll come back to it in a second. Anyone dead set where grades are more important than knowledge? Like, my objective in school is to have a 4.0 or whatever so that I can get into X college or university. Okay.
Sure.
Your goal is for the golf team to win just once
We're trying.
before you graduate.
We're trying.
Haley?
Like, I think in theory, everyone knows you kind of you go to school to get smart, you want the knowledge, but then everyone also knows your college doesn't care if you said you learned a lot in class, you got a C, but you learned a lot. Your college just wants to see your grades, so I think I don't know how we'd ever get around that. It's like they have to have some kind of show, like some kind of proof that you're doing what you need to do. But like, I'm pretty sure everyone kind of wants grades more than the actual knowledge in the long run.
Yeah, I have no idea what percentage would be, and it's not that I'd be saying that, Paige, Hannah, Quentin, Ellie, that you guys are lying, when asked that question. But I would think certainly over majority, 50% right now would be putting grades over knowledge. That's not to say there might not be a shift in those dynamics later on, that as you get older, hey, knowledge would be better. There certainly is, I would, and our title of the article, Too Much Pressure. You're under pressure, I would think, probably by 8th grade, probably even younger, because my daughter in 3rd grade's already talking about it, that what's after high school? College, like it's expected. Yeah, I said something to Addie, like, you might not be going to college. I mean, she literally almost had a breakdown. I have to go to college. I'm worried it's going to be $85,000 to go to Slippery Rock, a year by the time that she's going to be 18 years old, 19 years old, let alone, the age that she's at right now. So, I start kind of thinking from that financial angle, but she's dead set on, I have to go to college. Not that she's dead set on grades are more important than knowledge, but certainly she already sees that as being the goal. And then as you mature through, education, how do you get into college? The grades. It's not necessarily the knowledge. It's more so the grades. So yeah, that'd have to be a whole cultural dynamic shift that would take place. That pessimistically, I kind of wonder if we're already past that point. If you can ever go back, it's too late for Mr. Colossus over there. He's all about the grades. He said, "Too bad. Oh well." In your mind, and again, all three of these, absolutely correct. And I was thinking of something along all of those lines. In your mind, what would you say would be her most 3 convincing elements of support for any one of those? Because certainly, different elements of support would better tie in with those arguments. But how does she support those claims, or any one of those claims, with things from her text, whether it be specific support you can recall, or like just general ideas?
She says over here that having the B on your report card may like not set you apart from the rest on a college applications.
Uh-huh.
People wanting an A.
So kind of like that stigma of a B. And with that, she also kind of uses what example, I guess, to go along with it. I mean, since she's a college freshman at this point, she's pretty recent, so it's kind of like, I don't necessarily go my B, but she does mention about copying homework. Like, she has personal examples. In her mind, probably a sense of logic that would kind of go with that stigma of the B. And I could think of several times that, a person has gotten an 88%, an 89%. With 1 day left in the semester, what's the question? What can I do to get an A? Can I do extra credit? What can I do? Because they don't want to have that B or the C if it's the 79%. If I went, Haley, but think of all the knowledge you've gained, so it'll be okay, that's not going to sit well, certainly with some folks. What else? Like, what would be, Ryan mentioned that students, teachers, and schools allow cheating or certainly don't really seem to condemn it all that much. Any information that would kind of lead us to believe, yeah, that's the case.
Well, she said her school. I know our school isn't the same, but she said her school was like, you just get a 0 on the test, and they wouldn't refer that to the parents.
Mm-hmm.
And,
If they drop.
yeah, they dropped the test grade eventually, so I don't know, like the school didn't really care that much.
Sure. I remember in college, this is different, kind of, but in college I did have many classes where over the semester you have like 4 tests. If you were happy with your grade after 3 tests, you could be done, and you wouldn't have to take the 4th. So it wasn't saying we would take away that 0, but at the same time you may not have to try quite as hard. And if you're ultimately worried about what you're going to stop, I'm worried about the grade. I'm happy with my 90. I stop. I don't worry about reading the rest of the textbook, in order to take that 4th. So yeah, the whole dropping, of lowest grade. You know, if in English class Sean goes, can we drop the lowest essay grade? And he's thinking of that 0 that he got for the plagiarism. I'm going to go, sure, but plagiarism ones aren't going to be exempt. That one's still absolutely going to be there. But apparently in her school, that's not necessarily the case. And I think we mentioned this yesterday. Caitlin, maybe it's fresh in your mind since you just answered the question, hopefully correctly. What percentage of people admit to cheating? 98. Which I think I asked you yesterday, do you agree with that statistic? And seemed to be like, yeah. And some people will go, I think it should be a little higher. Very rarely does anyone go, it should be lower. We won't take a poll in here unless you really want to. Caitlin, when's the last time you cheated? Look at that, I'm just implying guilt already. Okay, that's fine. I was going to say, you don't have to answer. Now, so it certainly makes sense that if you are going to be trying to advance an argument, you are going to have evidence to help support it. And honestly, this is 2/3 of the Toulmin model, the whole concept that we're going to take a look at when how you structure your argument. So we're going to kind of switch gears. I'm not worried about the rest of the questions at this point. We're going to take a look at a thing called the Toulmin model. We got the spelling up here. I will certainly make the screen a little bit larger. Yes. Yeah, it's not 2015. I noticed that second period today. Good noticing, though. I'm glad. As Danielle has pointed out, it's not 2015, although fortunately the Toulmin model hasn't changed in the last year because he's long gone, so he's not going to be making any changes from the grave to the Toulmin model. If you become famous, it's usually after you've died. Sure. He's more like philosophy, kind of like in science and things. Stephen Toulmin, it's okay. But what's my famous diagram going to be? Like, there's the Toulmin model. What's Keynes' lasting impact? You've already forgotten. And Elise and Sarah are probably going, Elise, that is good. Remember the cane tree.
Oh, that's it.
All those metaphors.
It will be famous. You just wait. Little whatever your kids' names will be in however many years from now, we learned about the cane tree. You can be like, all right. It is original to me. Well, I didn't get that from anybody. Alright, I will zoom in on this, but the Toulmin model is a pretty simple thing. The whole idea is that you have data, your data leads to warrant or reasoning, and therefore you create a claim. So you're going to want to draw the picture a little bit. So you start off with data. That's the main term that gets used within the Toulmin model community, data and grounds. For us, the synonym would be like the evidence. So you have evidence. You then use that evidence to come up with a warrant or reasoning, logic in a way, and after you have collected, you've reasoned it, then that warrant and reasoning ultimately leads to your overall claim. Anybody notice anything that might seem a little odd or I guess unique about that order? That you would have data, collect that data to come up with your warrant, and therefore you get your claim. From an argumentative standpoint.
It's interesting that you make the claim last, because if you were to make the claim first, then people might be against it at first, and they might block out what you're saying.
Okay.
You use facts and logic, then kind of draw that together to a claim.
Would you say that we generally put the claim first? I mean, I think you asked about spar debates. That's a perfect example. Pick your side or topic. Side. Escalators are meant to be walked on. Sure. And then what do you start to think about? What's your reason? What's your evidence going to be? I meant, because you said, English guy, and I said, actually, he's a philosopher, and he's really more in the science field. And I think this is where you can kind of see it, where he'd be going, theoretically, or in his mind, ideally, you observe, you collect data. Then you take that data, you figure out what's going on, and that leads to an actual argument or claim. I would agree that I think most of the time we probably start with the claim. And then we try to find evidence to support that claim and then kind of convey it. Of the three, the one that we really make sure that we always have is going to be the claim. So are there arguments where we sometimes don't have any data or evidence for it? Sure. We might not think about it a whole lot, but there are times. What do you mean that's a loophole that you asking for someone what's on a test is not cheating? I don't know, I just think that's what I believe. That could be a claim, but you don't have the evidence necessarily. Not to say you couldn't get it, but that might not always be on the tip of our tongue. A lot of times, though, people have a claim, people will have data, but they don't have a warrant. Not that you don't have a reason, but you don't communicate that warrant or that reasoning to the other person or to the audience. And for us, that's critical. How does your evidence lead to the overall claim? So the warrant reasoning is the one that a lot of times gets left behind. You want to make sure that that does not happen, that you do explain how those things do ultimately all connect. The other thing, though, that I think is good, when we start researching, on any kind of issue, any kind of topic, the U.S. should build a wall between Mexico and the U.S., okay? Sarah says no. How are you going to research? What are you going to do? Like, what would be the step?
Probably first you want to consider the rate of illegal immigrants entering the U.S. from Mexico.
How are you going to do that?
Look it up.
On?
Some
Illegal
credible
immigrants.
Because if it's .org, it has to be true.
Yeah.
It's probably, I don't know who said it, Google it. Probably going to start with Google. And I'm not saying condemning that, how dare you do it, but that's probably what we do. A lot of times when folks research, they research for things that they want to prove their point. And that can be kind of dangerous because then you're also missing out on evidence that other sides might use against it. So I do think the idea of thinking of collecting as much evidence as possible, then use that evidence to actually develop your claim would be ideal, but it's certainly, I know, an issue that may not necessarily work that way all the time. All right, breaking down the concepts here. Definition, you can simplify it. Basically, the claim is the argument, it's the point that you're trying to make. I'm going to put examples down, but that doesn't mean you have to necessarily write those examples, only if it's certainly going to be helpful for you. So, claim is going to be that point that the arguer is trying to make, that proposition or assertion that the arguer wants you to accept. Basically, it's going to take care of that question, what is your point? So, Andrew, did Colin get you a birthday present?
He did.
That's good. He's better than my brother, so you should buy your brother a birthday present because he bought one for you. Not mentioning any, evidence is included, but the main claim is you should get your brother a present. Now, my evidence would be what?
What did he get me?
The fact that he got you something. So why should you get your brother a present? Because he has bought one for you. But main thing for the claim, you should buy your brother a present. What did he get you? You still, you wear it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I don't remember the last time my brothers, plural, got me a birthday present. It is.
Did you have two brothers?
Yep.
Did you get them birthday
Did the
presents?
one not a job yet?
Nope. I send them birthday cards.
Did you get a present?
Hey, like she said, birthday.
But I sent a birthday card in the mail.
You don't get cards?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's rough.
They call me, please.
I got a text last year, I think, from one of them.
Alright.
So we're moving
At
up.
least they know when your birthday is, I guess.
The one definitely does. The other one, Jeff, I'm not sure. I don't know.
He's the one who doesn't.
He's the one who doesn't drive. All right, 3 basic types of claim. You can have fact-based claim, a judgment or value, or one that is policy. And I'll slide this up here in a little bit. Fact-based claims are things which are focusing on something that can absolutely be verified. It can be, proven. There's physical evidence. Last Friday, I think it was, I walked out of the front door far too early in the morning and went, huh, it rained. How did I know? The ground was wet. The grass was wet, the sidewalk and driveway was wet, the vehicle was wet, and there was 1.5 inches of rain in the rain gauge. So I'm pretty sure that it must have rained. That's fact-based. Value or judgment, this is going to involve opinions and attitudes and something that is subjective. This is probably going to be the most common one. Escalators should be walked on. Teachers should be allowed to carry firearms. Caitlin doesn't like that idea. We had that argument second period. It did not go well. I'm just going to leave it.
What if teachers yelling at you when they go like this?
Why would they be holding you?
Yeah, why would they be holding?
Don't do anything to make me yell at you.
Carry doesn't mean physically always carry.
Correct.
Hey, you
Correct.
never know. What if they're just like,
What word would you expect to show up, beginning with an S, in a subject or value claim? Not Sarah. Alec? Should. Yeah. If you see the word should, that tends to mean it's going to be value. The last one is policy. And this is advocating for some kind of course of action to be taken. So you're talking like legislation. When we do student congress, those will be policy debates, policy resolution. All teachers for the 2017-2018 school year will carry firearms, on them in their classrooms. And Caitlin will vote no, which is understandable. I don't really disagree with that. You voting no.
hey, for all you know, like, you just like, do the little thing down where you like spin it, it goes off. That happens in the office.
I'd be worried about, what if Sean tries to overtake me and a mutiny in the classroom, anything could happen. So, like Washington, D.C., you remember our favorite congressman, he was able to avoid that whole making laws game. That would be part of policy because they are trying to enact something. So you have fact-based, you have judgment value, and then you also have policy. Fact-based is probably the most difficult one to prove because you need to verify it. Now, it rained last night. It's not going to be too difficult. If you did something like teachers carrying firearms improves discipline in the classroom, you need some kind of verifiable fact evidence to support it.
Teacher pointing out at students,
Fire.
probably work harder. Or maybe you get shot, either way, it's.
That was
Motivation for
part
everyone
of the
else.
second period argument that was not going
So
very well.
sometimes
So.
you just gotta,
Is the
sometimes someone has to take
expectation
a
of the
bullet.
teacher at that point to shoot the person that is gonna possibly cause harm? Because I really can't see any teachers pulling the trigger.
You mean like if you had a school intruder or something like
Yeah.
like a Sandy Hook thing? Yeah, that would be.
So
I mean that has not been a formal bill that has ever taken place, but there has been talk, especially on college campuses, because it's not so much Sandy Hook with like kindergarten and first grade and things like that, but Virginia Tech, which would have been probably about 10 years ago. I mean Pitt had an active shooter. With Western Psych, which was on campus, that was about 5 years ago.
Like Texas Tech, like way back.
Yeah.
Like they had a sniper on top of a.
I think I want to say it might have been Texas.
I know it was one of those.
I think it was Austin. But yeah, it was in Texas where there. Yeah, that was I think in between the two. So it's more of college campuses where there have been movements for college students to be allowed to have firearms on them. Some campuses do allow it, most don't.
Yeah, you also.
And there's also been things then about where professors should have it or should not. So as you would think, why would anyone ever debate that issue? I'd say not so much high school. I don't see that middle school, elementary, but at the college level, that is something that comes up. And a lot of those things do end up, not saying that it's a 100% a bad idea, but they do tend to be quite reactionary. Something has happened, whether it be isolated or widespread, what are we going to do to stop it? That might be a way. Is that a good way? That's a whole other debate. The grounds itself, this is the data, this is the evidence. So we got 3 different types of claims: policy, judgment, fact. The grounds are going to be the proof that you are going to offer, in support of your claim. So this is going to be answering the what is the proof, why, how come. Andrew should get Colin a present. What's the reason? Why? Because he already got one for you. So that's not going to be a statistic or necessarily a report, but it could be a form of reasoning. Since he did get one for you, you should get one for him. But people will use statistics. Schools don't care about cheating anymore. How do we know? Well, 98% of students admit to it. If the schools really cared, less would be doing it. The amount of students who are cheating has dramatically increased over the last 50 years. One of those things that gets mentioned in the article. So reports, findings, physical evidence, it rained last night, would fall under that category, and then logic. So certainly you might have some things where you can't have a physical document or statistic of proof, but you can offer logic, that can still be evidence. And so depending upon what kind of claim you are offering will go a long way to determining what type of evidence you will have. If you're doing something that is fact-based, then statistic, reports, physical evidence is going to be pretty important. If you're doing something that is more subjective or value-based, forms of reasoning and things like that can important. Let's pause right there. So Tuesday, we're going to finish these things off, and then we'll get into some discussion. Actually, next week we're also going to do logical fallacies, but your quiz for next Friday is only going to be Toulmin model stuff. Tuesday, I'll go over the format with you. You're not going to be surprised by anything that shows up on the quiz.